me first off, just give a little bit of background about yourself, folks who don't get to know you.
So I grew up in Clarksburg. I'm a third-generation engineer. I started an engineering company with my father in 1983. We had one employee, and 37 years later we have 500 employees with 11 offices in 7 states. It's West Virginia kids. They're engineers, architects, environmental scientists, surveyors, construction managers. We don't build anything, but we design and monitor the construction. So had a successful building of that company. Also have developed properties across the state. The one I'm most proud of is in my home county. 10 years ago it was a strip mine, and today it employs 3,000 people. And I was also Secretary of Commerce for a couple of years, where I was able to bring in a number of jobs into West Virginia. So I'm running because I feel like I know this state as well as anybody. I built my company traveling all across the state trying to get work for my company. And unfortunately, only 2 cities have grown since I started my business, and every other city has shrunk. West Virginia has lost 38,000 people since this governor took office. West Virginia is very much going in the wrong direction. And we've had this coronavirus to deal with, and now we've got the riots and situation, but that's going to pass. But what's going to stay is West Virginia has continued on its economic decline. It's even accelerated under this governor. He hasn't done anything that he promised. He promised we were going to take a rocket ship ride up. We haven't taken a rocket ship ride. We're in worse condition than when he took over. And I think fundamentally we got to make some changes in the state, get it in the right direction, and I think I can do that.
An issue that folks have been talking about for a while is roads. The governor's Road to Prosperity project. How do you feel that has been going, and what do you think you can do to contribute to road growth here?
Well, I think there are 2 key components. There's the roads to prosperity, and then there's the fundamental maintenance of our primary and secondary roads. The governor clearly has lacked in the maintenance of our primary and secondary roads. I've been driving these roads my whole life. They've never been worse. It's still the number one issue that people talk to us about is the condition of the primary and secondary roads. You know, I think the Roads to Prosperity program is great. I think it has a lot of potential. Unfortunately, I don't think we're spending money in the places that are going to generate economic return. You know, West Virginia is limited in its finances, and we've got to work on projects that we're going to get a return on that investment. I don't think our Roads to Prosperity program is being spent in the most economic way in terms of promoting growth.
West Virginia has a tremendous number of children in foster care right now. It's a big issue facing the state. How do you feel about that, and do you have a plan to combat that?
Well, personally, I think the foster care is as big as any problem that we have because it impacts so many lives. We have a detailed plan for a number of things, but one is the drug crisis. And in that crisis, we specifically address the foster home situation. West Virginia's growth rate in foster care has been 6 times the national average. It's enormous. And it not only has a real humanitarian impact in terms of the kids and the families that are looking after them, but it also has a big economic impact because we need for these kids to be contributors to our society, not taking away. Clearly, social workers and DHHR are overwhelmed. Clearly, we need to make it easier for people to be foster care families. Clearly, we need to give more attention to the kids that are in these foster care homes. I think when you look at social issues, foster care is the number one.
You mentioned coronavirus before, and things will be different by the time that election cycle is over, but there still will be some reoccurring effects just of what's happened over the past year. Do you have any plan if something were to happen again, what you would do as governor and how to respond to that?
Well, let's say the health crisis will pass, but the economic crisis will stay. West Virginia was on very thin ice relative to our economy before this coronavirus took place. There are a number of small businesses across this state that are going to go out of business, and our real problem going forward is a lack of economic prosperity, and I'm afraid at the end of this crisis it's going to be much worse. Really disappointed that the governor has not done more to address that. He still hasn't put the $1.25 billion of federal money to work. He should have put that to work weeks ago. He could have used the rainy day fund to create a bridge loan program, which we strongly recommended, so they could small businesses could apply for loans to pay their rent, their utilities, those things to allow them to stay viable through this crisis. And the governor, unfortunately, has done none of that. And I think, unfortunately, our state's going to suffer a real economic downturn because of it.
If elected governor, what changes would you make right off the bat?
You know, I think we would make, don't waste a good crisis. We have the opportunity to review everything West Virginia does. If I'm going to put some things at the top of the list, it's roads, broadband, education, our drug policy, and diversifying our economy across this state so we can have the chance for economic prosperity going forward.
What do you think the solution is for the drug problem in the state?
You know, I think first it's prevention. We've got to start working with kids at pre-kindergarten ages to teach them the ills of drug use and also teach them to have good, healthy lifestyles. We shouldn't be the unhealthiest state in the country. Secondly, we've got to support our first responders. These people are delivering Narcan multiple times a week, sometimes to the same person. So we've got to support firemen, policemen, the people to the front line of that troop. I think we need rehab centers across this state. This drug problem is not going to go away. So we did just have one in Huntington and Charleston, and added a new one in Martinsburg, but we need to have those across the state, and we need to provide long-term counseling, because this is not a 2-month fix, it's a 2-year fix, and so we need to have those support services. And then finally, as I mentioned before, we've got to do something about kids that are offering foster care families, the children of addicted families that are total victims of this. They did nothing wrong. And we've got to invest in those kids so they can turn out to be productive, fruitful citizens.
Is there anything else you want to say and touch on here?
Yeah, I think that West Virginia is a fundamental turning point. I think if we look, this state is worse off in almost every category since this governor took office. And I think West Virginia's got to face the hard decision that we need to make some changes if our prosperity is going to improve. And I don't think it's going to happen with Jim Justice.
That's all I have for you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for taking the time.